But like the guy on 9/11, who was the tenant?
He just bought the building. I'm bad with names. You were asking.
I can't remember the guy's name. It's just
I can see his face.
insured it. Geez, for terrorism. Tried to collect for two separate incidents of terrorism, but I think he collected what was it, $4 billion, something like
A few
that.
$1 billion.
And wait, they've never rebuilt over there, have they?
I think they're doing something.
They're supposed to have rebuilt the Freedom Tower. It's hasn't happened yet.
How far have they gone? I don't follow the news.
I think they've cleared the area. I have to look up on the internet. Somebody said that they finally started construction, but now with the so-called economic slowdown, they've had to.
Interesting. I didn't know that because that would make more perfect sense scripturally. Okay.
So, is the economic stuff now tied into 9/11?
Well, this is my take on it. I mean, I've kind of run bases on it with you before. It's like back with Arthur Anderson and Enron and all that stuff came out. There were thousands of companies across the country under investigation that's the evidence got destroyed in the buildings. And back at that time, 2001. And actually, I don't want to digress off that. So this, I think we're seeing evidence of that from 2001, and they needed, well, I don't want to say it, it's too many things to get off into, it's too big. But yeah, in essence, yeah, I think this is the manifestation of events since before 9/11 that 9/11 covered up.
Put a Band-Aid on, so to speak, for a period of time?
Tourniquet. They put a tourniquet on the situation. The patient is still critical, if not going to die, but he might have a few more hours to live. And put it, yeah, really. Maybe to get his last rites given to him. Who knows? In God's providence, it's all going to work out in the end. But yeah, I think it was a trauma tourniquet. 9/11, a trauma tourniquet to help engage a further development of the New World Order faster, as it wasn't on the time frame that they wanted. Actually, we're behind the curve according to their timetables, where all of this should have already happened, but I've digressed again. So, what better way to attack somebody and to get what you want other than through shock and awe? Okay, when people are in shock, through recorded, they've done this over and over again, when people are in shock over an instance, they're not thinking in the right mind, not with rational thoughts.
Right.
Just like when you have a loved one or somebody that you know that dies or get killed or commits suicide, you are in shock and it takes time to heal. Well, the time frame that it took from that first initial tragedy until where people started waking up and healing, it took you a long time before I saw it right away. It took you a long time before you started seeing anything.
Interesting. I had a friend too, and we've only talked about this recently. He saw it immediately. He saw it when the buildings were going down, and he was like, he goes, he says that's a problem. Is I always look at things in that way. That's the first conclusion I came to. For me, it was like, holy crap, we're at war.
Well, most people do. One thing, I saw visions before in that day that God, I believe God gave me, or the Holy Spirit, however you want to call it, gave me and showed me those events that transpired. And in the shower I saw it, and then I turned in, because at that time I was doing a lot of traveling across across town and things like that. I was in my car a lot, and I listened to a lot of religious tapes and things like that, studying the Bible a lot at the house and on the internet, and I had these visions of what was going to transpire, and then it happened. And when they had that news break, because I was led to turn on the radio, which I normally don't do at the time. I'm listening to my tapes or studying, and so I did. And they had that interruption. We have a emergency announcement to make anyway. And as soon as they said that, I was like, I knew what was going to happen next. The other building, the Pentagon, I knew what was going to happen next. And I started praying. And, but yeah, I knew right away.
Now you knew it not from anything you've studied, not strictly from inspiration from God. You knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. Now, and well, also, yeah, from God, but also from knowing history and knowing past events. I mean, that was part of it, but yeah. But what I'm saying is, it took you a while to wake up, and when you woke up, most everybody else was still asleep.
Correct. Which was interesting for me.
And
right. So in other words, I went through the same scenario you went through immediately. In other words, of seeing people still asleep, where you knew pretty much immediately. With me, it was at least 5 years from those events.
yeah, and I would get banned for saying stuff that I would say, and now everybody accepts it. Well, you know, or not everybody, but most people. Not like the girl today that I went to cash a small check at the bank, and she was telling me that, oh, they don't want to take your guns away. They just want you to register them. It's for safety and this and that. Yeah. But the other guys in the bank were like, you know, at least they were somewhat awake. Well, it's this shock that allows them to push their agenda through with more acceptance. Because most people don't want to, fight. They don't want what's going to come. I don't want what's going to come. I wish it didn't come to what I believe it's going to happen, but they use that to their advantage.
Well, explain once again when you say there was a tourniquet applied to the patient at that point.
Okay, we received multiple hit, or put it this way, if we were in battle, our squad or our regiment or our battalion or however you want to look at it, was under attack for a while. But most people didn't realize it. Most people were still in their tents sleeping. Okay? And to get their agenda pushed through and to cover up certain things, 9/11 happened. Whether it was terrorist or inside job or however you want to look at it.
Allowed to happen.
It happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if it didn't happen when it did, I believe, how should I say this? It happened so their agenda could have momentum to keep moving forward.
Okay, what can you spell out the agenda?
I don't know what the new warlords. Some people say they want to kill us all. Some people say they want to make us prisoners. One thing or another. It doesn't really matter. Because in the end, the saints are going to stomp on the enemies of God. And it says righteous people that have clean hands and a clean heart, that love the truth.
Well, I mean, is the agenda a paradigm shift where
it's a paradigm shift
from whatever synthetic liberty we have now to people essentially declaring themselves gods and making us serfs or what have you? Is that in general vague terms? That's what I'm just trying to.
Whose God do you serve? Back what we talked about earlier. It's, are you going to serve man and his man-made ways, or are you going to serve the true and living God? And if you're going to serve the true and living God, you're not going to worship this beast system that we have. Now the beast, some people believe it's one man. Well, it could very well have a head. but the head has many tentacles, and it's all part of one system. It's a world system, and they want one religion, one commonality in the minds of people to move forward. And anybody that, just like they were saying, anybody that's not for us is against us. Anybody that, you know, doesn't support this is a terrorist, whatever. It's all baloney.